CSS Introduction. Before you begin, it is important that you know Windows or Unix, which is the same thing as Linux. A working knowledge of Windows or Linux makes it easier to learn CSS. You should be familiar with the following: basic word processing using any text editor. Since we are going to be using mobile devices to learn our training, then you are going to be using the mobile Ewebtutor mobile text editor under the Ewebtutor FTP. How to create directories and files, how to navigate through different directories, basic understanding on internet browsing using browser like Internet Explorer or Firefox, etc. Basic understanding on developing simple web page using HTML or XML. So I believe before you start this CSS tutorial, I believe you've already finished the section HTML tutorial because without you knowing the tags in HTML and how to structure your web page with HTML, it will be very difficult for you to learn CSS because the two of them works hand in hand. So if you are new to HTML and XHTML, then I will suggest you to go through our HTML tutorial or XHTML tutorial. Any one of HTML or XHTML is enough to proceed. So what is CSS? CSS, the meaning of CSS is cascading style sheets, fondly referred to as CSS, is a simple design language intended to simplify the process of making the web page presentable. CSS handles the looks and feel part of a web page. Using CSS, you can control the color of the text, the styles of the font, the spacing between paragraphs, how columns are sized and laid out, what background image or color are used, as well as varieties of other effects. Let me show you a simple web page. Look at this web page right now. It's because of CSS, is with the language of CSS that we are able to create this beautiful page. You will discover that this font, the color of this text right now is red, is white. You will discover that the background that you have here, the background color that you have here, you will discover, you will look at the color is the same color as the background that we have on this dive. Can you see on this background? So to structure our web page with all these fonts, you can see the fonts that we use to create all this text. The font that is here is different from the fonts that is here. So all these things will make use of C. It's not as if you can't use HTML. You can also use HTML to give an effect, to give a color, to also give an effect. But HTML is not strong enough to give effects, as in to give effect. So you make use of CSS in order for you to give a beautification effect to your web page. Look at this also, this web page right now. So look at this web page right now. You will discover that all this color, all these fonts, the font size, the color, all these other things that you are seeing here will make use of CSS to create all these things. So another important of CSS, characteristic style sheet, than HTML is the fact that if you create a website with HTML and you open it to some mobile devices, you will discover that that site will not be well arranged. When you create a site with HTML, you will discover that you can have, if let's say the site name is, the name of the site is face, F can be up, C can be down, E can follow the north parts inside the mobile devices. That's why you see that some sites, whenever you open them with a mobile phone, you discover that they will not appear the way they always appear whenever you open them on the system. So some sites are like that whenever you open them with all these mobile devices, you will discover that their looks will be very, very different. Their looks will not even be okay at all than when you are opening them with a system. But assuming you use CSS, irrespective of the devices that you are using, assuming you use CSS to style your web page, irrespective of the devices that you are using. Even if you are using the most smallest phone in the whole world, it's still going to render it the way it is on the web, or as in on the system. That's why we make use of CSS. You can see a site like facebook.com. When you go to facebook.com, even though you open them on mobile phones, it will still come out, it will still be beautiful, it will still retain its quality as when you open it with a system. But there are some sites that whenever you open them with a system, it will be very, very beautiful. But when you open them with a mobile phone, you will discover that their beautification will have lost its taste. So it's always a good practice as a professional web designer. It's always a good practice for you to design and for you to structure your web page using cascade style sheet. Most of the things that a HTML can do, most of the things that CSS can do, HTML also, you can also do it in HTML. But if you use CSS, mobile devices, all these devices, they will be able to bring it out the way it ought to be. So that's just about the explanation of the HTML and CSS. So CSS handle the looks and feel part of a web page. Using CSS, you can control the color of the text, like I explained to you, the size of the font, the spacing between paragraph, how columns are sized and laid out, what background image and color to be used. Like the example of this one, that the background image, this is a background image, this one also is a background image. So what kind of background image to be used, as well as the varieties of other effects. CSS is easy to learn and understand, but it provides powerful control over the presentation of an HTML document. I've told you that CSS cannot work alone. You use it with your HTML. So without HTML knowledge, you can write a CSS language. So most commonly, CSS is combined with the markup language HTML or XHTML. So advantages of HTML, advantages of CSS. CSS saves time. You can write CSS once and then reuse same sheet in multiple HTML page. You can define a style for each HTML element and apply it to as many web page as you want. So this aspect, we are still going to, when we are writing our code, we are still going to teach you how CSS, how it saves your time. So but because of this tutorial now, since you don't already have the knowledge of CSS before, it will be very difficult for us to explain how CSS saves time. But when we start writing, this is just an introductory class, but when we start writing CSS like with the previous chapter, then we'll be able to teach you how CSS saves time. The next thing is pages load faster with CSS. If you are using CSS, you do not need to write HTML tag attribute every time. Just write one CSS rules of a tag and apply it to all occurrence of that tag. So less code means faster download time. So what we refer to as pages load faster in CSS when you write your web page with CSS is the fact that when you are accessing some web page, you will discover that it always takes time before it finishes loading. You will discover that it's just dragging. Even though your internet connection is very, very fast, you just discover that you are opening other sites are opening very, very fast, but that web page is slow. The reason is just because the developer that built that web page does not use CSS. That's why you see that it's taking longer time for that page to load. But assuming CSS has been used when creating that web page, the web page will have been delivering faster. So when you use CSS, your page load faster, your web page load faster, your web visitor. So another advantage is easy maintenance. When you create a site, a web page with CSS, it's very easy for you to maintain it. Whenever you want to edit something, it will be very, very easy for you to edit. We are still going to, when we enter into CSS coding, we will be able to tell you how CSS is easy to maintain. The next thing advantage is it has superior styles to HTML. CSS has a much wider array attributes than HTML, so you can give far better looks to your HTML page in comparison to HTML attributes. So what we are trying to say in this in this instance is that, look at, for example, now when we are talking about various tags in HTML, normally the same tags is what we apply in CSS, but there is what we refer to as the attributes. I believe when we are talking about HTML, we will explain to you what an attribute means, an attribute of a tag. Normally when we are talking about HTML, we explain to you a tag font. We say font has how many attributes? It has three attributes. We said it has the color, it has the size, and it also has the what? It has the font has the color, the size, and it also has the face. So we said those are the three attributes of what? Of fonts. So but when we are dealing with attributes in CSS, attributes in CSS are much wider than attributes in HTML. So just know that CSS has a much wider array of attributes than HTML. So that means it's going to give you a lot of functions than what HTML can give you. Because normally, like that font now, we said it has 3 attributes in HTML. When we are talking about when we are in HTML tutorial, when we are in the HTML chapter, we explain to you various attributes, we explain to you various tags. You understand that each, or you know that a particular attribute now, you know the kind of, a particular tags now, you know the kind of attribute that it has. We tell you maybe some has 10 attributes, some has 3 attributes, but CSS has a much wider array of attributes. So the next thing, which is one of the most important advantage of CSS, is multiple device compatibility. I've already explained this. Style sheets allow content to be optimized for more than one type of devices. By using the same HTML document, different versions of a website can be presented for handheld devices such as PDAs and cell phone, or for printing. So when the CSS has multiple device compatibility, it's not unlike HTML that when you open it on the web page, you will see it very beautiful, but by the time you open it, all this smaller phone, you will discover that the page will not load the way it was to load. So HTML does not support multiple device compatibility. So the last thing is the global web standard. New HTML attributes are being deprecated and it is being recommended to use CSS. So it is good idea to start using CSS in all the HTML pages to make them compatible to future browser. So just note one thing, CSS cannot work alone. It has to be used with what? With HTML, but HTML can work alone. So the next thing is who creates and maintains CSS. What is the company that started CSS? Who creates it and who maintains it? CSS is created and maintained through a group of people within the W3C called the CSS working group. The CSS working group creates documents called specifications. When a specification has been discussed and officially ratified by W3C members, it becomes a recommendation. These ratified specifications are called recommendation because the W3C has no control over the actual implementation of the language. Independent company and organization create that software. Note, the World Wide Web Consortium, or W3C, is a group that makes recommendations about how the internet works and how it should evolve. So the next thing is the CSS version. Cascading style sheets level 1, CSS1, came out of W3C as a recommendation in December of 1996. This version describes the CSS language as well as a simple visual formatting model for all the HTML tag. CSS2 became a W3C recommendation in May 1998 and built on CSS1. This version adds support for media-specific style sheets, e.g. printer and other devices, downloadable fonts, element positioning, and tables. So one thing I just want you to understand is that when we summarize everything, using CSS is very, very good for a web page than making use of ordinary HTML, because HTML does not perform the functions on how the structure of a web page like CSS will perform. So it's a very good practice when you make use of CSS, because apart from that, when you use CSS, it has a mobile variety of mobile compatibility. So if you use the CSS now, any mobile phone, any mobile devices can also access your web page, and it will still render it the same way that a computer browser will render that web page. So, and that is the CSS are the kind of language that, like Facebook's, Twitter, they are the kind of language that this organization use when building their software. So it's a very good practice for you to use it. But there are sometimes that you may open a web page in your phone and you discover that A may go to north, B may go to south, C may go to the east. You discover that the site will just be, it will not be, you will not even understand the site, because everything will just be jam-packed around. The reason that web page is like that is because the developer of that web page make use of HTML instead of CSS. So normally you can make use of HTML to design your web page, like we explained to you when you are in the HTML chapter. But HTML will not render a very, since we said HTML is used to structure web page. But if you use HTML to build your web page, HTML will not give that web page the kind of standard it also give it. So that is why you have to learn how to use CSS. So this is just an introduction to CSS. The previous chapter will teach you how to start using CSS for your application, for your web page, and how to start combining CSS with HTML to give a very good beautification web page. So thanks for being there.